Breaking news, Sixers fans. According to reports, Philadelphia is engaged in trade talks with the San Antonio Spurs to move up to the second overall pick in the 2025 NBA draft. Who could they be targeting? Could this move actually come to fruition? We're going to discuss it here on today's show. But real quick, before we do, we are officially less than 2 weeks away from the 2025 NBA draft, and plenty is already happening, and I can tell you there's plenty more to come as well. If you are excited for this NBA draft and everything that could go down entering draft night, hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. Welcome in to 76ers Now. I am Jake Chipper, and as I mentioned off the top, Michael Scotto with the report this morning that the Sixers have engaged with the Spurs about potentially moving up to the number 2 pick. Now, as of this moment, Sixers obviously still at number 3, have zeroed in on 4 NBA draft prospects with the number 3 pick, including a private workout last week with VJ Edgecombe, who by all accounts right now is actually the favorite for Philadelphia to select at number 3, no longer Ace Bailey, although Ace Bailey is going to visit Philadelphia sometime in the next week. So a bunch of draft intel really over the past couple of days that's coming on Philadelphia in a lot of different directions they could go. But right now, according to these reports, if this is all true and they are engaged in these trade talks to move up to number 2, to me it is clear that Philadelphia is zeroing in on Rutgers guard Dylan Harper as the prospect they would like to come out of this draft with. He's the consensus number 2 overall guy in this draft. It's Cooper Flagg at the top, then a little bit of a tier gap, I would say. Dylan Harper, the clear number 2. Then there's a gap between Dylan Harper and the rest. When you get to Ace Bailey, VJ Edgecombe, Harper, kind of in a class of his own there as the obvious number 2 prospect. 6'6" guard, 18 years old, was a freshman this past year at Rutgers. So, look, good size at that guard spot. 6'6", 213, with nearly a 6'11" wingspan. I know Sixers fans are going to see this, and I've already seen this on social media saying, we don't need another guard. We have Maxey, we have McCain. But look, Harper at that height can fit in very, very well as your starting point guard. And I think you can play Maxey a little more off the ball, but we'll get into more of that a little bit later. Let's talk about Harper, the player. In his lone year at Rutgers, I know Rutgers was bad. Dylan Harper was phenomenal. Over 19 points a game, 4 assists, almost 1.5 steals, while shooting an efficient 48.4% from the field. That came in just under 33 minutes per game. And when you talk about Dylan Harper as a player, what makes him the clear number 2 overall guy in this draft? Well, as that primary ball handler and primary creator of your offense, very, very poised as a ball handler, right? He's kind of more refined than we talk about guys like VJ Edgecombe, Ace Bailey, who have all these things they need to, mature in. Dylan Harper already is very, very poised as a ball handler. He's a great finisher at the rim. We'll dive into some of his numbers in a little bit. Has the physical attributes already all across the game with his strength and his length and the awareness to become a more engaged defender. He'll have to improve on that end, but he has all the tools to do it and did show some ability shooting off the catch. But as we'll also talk about here in just a second, those numbers a little bit up and down, a little bit streaky. Where he really does excel, some of his pros when he was at Rutgers, the physicality, as I mentioned. His length and his strength really plays in his ability to score the basketball at a 41.9 free throw rate, which is absurdly high. And he was an 86th percentile rim finisher, meaning he finishes at the rim better than most players in college did last season. So he's able to get there, and when he does, he's able to finish. Also a very good creator. He has a vision to find his teammates when they are open, to run the offense. He takes care of the ball, which a lot of young guards do not do at a very high level. They'll turn the ball over, but his 1.7 assist to turnover ratio on a nearly 30% usage rate, which is insanely high, is very, very promising and borderline elite at that level. And as I mentioned, he can play off the ball a little bit as well. A 36.8% catch and shoot 3-point percentage. Sure, it's not fantastic, but you'll take it. And obviously still developing and growing as a player, so something you like to see. Now, of course, does have his cons as well. Not the perfect prospect. Areas he will have to improve in, but I think these areas he definitely has shown signs of improving in. So Where Harper definitely needs to get better is shots off the dribble. He was in the 95th percentile of attempting off dribble jumpers. So he took a ton of tough, difficult shots, creating his own looks, but shot just 27.8% from two on those off dribble jumpers and just 29.2% from three on off dribble jumpers. So taking a lot of difficult shots, wasn't really able to knock them down, but again, it's an area of his game that I think can improve because he looks good when taking these kind of shots. Now, he's not an elite athlete, doesn't have elite burst, elite lift when he's rising up for a dunk or when he's trying to turn the corner, but he's good enough in that area, and he's a good enough handle in other areas of his game to make up for that. And again, he has the length and the frame to be a really good defender. Just didn't always show it at Rutgers, had a very large offensive burden, so I think he can prove that he can be a very good defender in the NBA. And when you talk about his potential role in the NBA, look, some of the comps he's been getting really ever since the season ended, guys that you look at and you're like, man, James Harden, Jalen Brunson, Cade Cunningham. Now, Harden, Brunson, Dylan Harper's a lefty, so he's getting a lot of lefty player comparisons. But his game is very similar to these two guys with the ability to draw fouls, the ability to take you off the dribble despite not being an elite athlete. And again, very similar to Cade Cunningham as well, someone who has the bigger size and has, the handle growing on the defensive side of the floor. I think he can be better defensively than Harden and Brunson are. But again, someone who's not going to absolutely wow you with his athleticism, although it certainly is good enough. In his lone year at Rutgers, honorable mention AP All-American, again, as an 18-year-old freshman, third team All-Big Ten, Big Ten All-Freshman team, and set the Rutgers freshman scoring record. So again, I know a tough season for Rutgers, but similar to Ace Bailey, very, very good individual season, and a guy that is clearly the number 2 guy right behind Cooper Flagg in this draft. In a lot of other years, he might be the number 1 guy. Also has NBA bloodline. Some of you might recognize that last name, Harper. His father, Ron Harper, played 15 NBA seasons, won 5 NBA titles, and his brother, Ron Harper Jr., has also played at Rutgers and has spent some time in the NBA, currently playing on a 2-way deal in the G League for the Detroit Pistons. So if his father's success, if his career is anything like that, and he's winning 5 titles, hopefully that's 5 titles with the Philadelphia 76ers. So I'll get into more of my thoughts on Dylan Harper on this Sixers team and his fit on this squad in particular. But before we do, I want to hear from you guys. What say you? Should the Sixers trade up to number 2 and draft Dylan Harper? Give me a Y for yes and for no. And of course, you can expand on those thoughts down in the comments section. I can already see it right now. I see all the comments. Chip, we don't need another guard. We have Maxey. We have McCain. We're going to bring back Grimes. We don't need another guard in this rotation. And while I generally agree that they don't need another guard, and I've been against them drafting guys like VJ Edgecombe and like Trey Johnson for that reason, I think Dylan Harper is just a little bit different. One, Dylan Harper is a true point guard, right? And I think Maxey, while he has really grown in that area of being a true point guard, I think he excels most off the ball. Think back to his time playing with James Harden and how he was able to excel playing off ball. So I think you can put Dylan Harper in there because he has the size at 6'6" to play the 1, play the 2. That backcourt of Dylan Harper, Tyrese Maxey would be absolutely insane for the next 10 years. And then you can still bring Jared McCain off the bench, where I think that's his most natural role. Then what do you do with Quentin Grimes? You're going to pay him a lot of money, probably around $20 million. So do you want to pay someone $20 million to bring him off the bench? I still think you find a way to bring him in. And you can work all 3 of these guys in the same lineup, again, because I like what Dylan Harper, with his length, his wingspan, what he can do defensively. I think you can live with all 3 of those guys on the floor. Whereas with Trey Johnson, VJ Edgecombe, I was a little more skeptical on having a group of those 3 on the floor at the same time. And again, Dylan Harper is just that much better of a prospect. Now, I can also see the comments saying that the whole Rutgers situation, right? Rutgers was so bad last year. Same thing with Ace Bailey. If they had these 2 great prospects, well, why were they so bad? Some of that has to fall on Dylan Harper, right? And I would agree, some of the blame does have to fall on the best players, of course, and Dylan Harper is included in that, being their best player. But again, I've mentioned this time and time again when talking about Ace Bailey. Like, if you didn't watch Rutgers last year, just an absolute train wreck of a team. Outside of those 2 guys, the rest of the roster was absolutely horrible. The coaching was not very good. very hard to operate in that kind of system when the opposing team always knows what's going on. It's going to be Ace or it's going to be Dylan Harper, and Dylan Harper still scored nearly 20 points a game in the Big Ten, which had some really, really good defenses this year. And he had some really big games as well throughout the season, multiple 30-plus point games, 35-point games as well. So I really don't want you to get caught up on the success of the team in college. Even though they had high expectations, it's really not the fault of either Dylan Harper or Ace Bailey. Going back to the trade-up, right? Because obviously, when you're talking about the Sixers one move up to number 2, that is for Dylan Harper. But what is a trade-up going to cost? It's very interesting because it's just one spot in the draft, right? From number 3 to number 2, you're not moving up all that much. You're not asking San Antonio to move down all that much, although I think you are moving down a tier of player, which is important to note. So let's throw it back to the Markelle Fultz trade, right? The Sixers had the number 3 overall pick back in 2017. Boston had number 1. So similar scenario here with not moving up too much at the top of the draft. We don't see very many, number 1, number 2, number 2, number 3 trades in the NBA draft, but this is one of the few. So Philadelphia, obviously forget about the outcome of this trade. I know the Sixers ended up getting fleeced because Fultz didn't end up being the guy we thought he would. Just look at the compensation, right? Philadelphia moved up from number 3 to number 1, gave Boston a future first. A conditional 2018 first ended up turning into a 2019 first. That was like the 14th-ish overall pick. So that's about what it took to move up 2 spots. So when I'm looking about a potential deal here with San Antonio, I think the Sixers would have to give up 1 future first. And honestly, I know people are going to be upset that I'm giving up this 2028 Clippers first-round pick because who knows what the Clippers look like in that year of 2028, given that they have Harden, who's old, and Kawhi, who's old, but they're also LA, right? They're the Clippers. They just got a new stadium. They have an owner in Steve Ballmer who's very, very willing to pay up large amounts of money to keep his team competitive. So there's no guarantee it's a top pick at all. Of course, it could be, a potential lottery top 5 pick, but we don't really know that right now. I think it's worth it. Even though you're only moving up 1 spot, you might say that's a lot to give up to move up 1 spot. Don't think about it in terms of you're moving up 1 spot in the draft. Think about it in terms of you're moving up a whole tier of player to be able to get somebody like Dylan Harper, as opposed to having to choose between the rest of the guys, which really a coin flip. Could it be Ace Bailey, BJ Edgecombe, Trey Johnson? You don't really know. That's why I think it's worth it to give up that pick, and then you hold on to your second-round pick as well in this draft, which I think the Sixers could use on a backup center. So what say you? Would you make this trade? Number 3, 2028 Clippers first for number 2. Just give me an A for accept, a D for decline. And of course, you can explain your reasoning down in the comment section. I'll give you some more of my thoughts on this deal and additional thoughts on a potential trade-up. But real quick, speaking of the NBA draft hats are available. The designs have been released. I'm showing you the Sixers design here on screen. Different styles of hats, different colorways as well with that script font. There's a bucket hat. There's a couple of other, fitted hats type of designs. And you can get your very own right now at chatsports.com/76draft hat. You can go check them out and get yourself one before the NBA draft starts. I'll have that link in the comment section and description of today's show. Again, that is chatsports.com/76draft hat, the official hats that the prospects will be wearing on draft night. So for me, as I mentioned, I'm accepting that trade, no doubt about it, because Dylan Harper is that good of a prospect. There's so many unknowns with guys like Ace Bailey, guys like BJ Edgecombe. Look, as much as I love Ace Bailey and I wanted him at number 3, I can acknowledge he's not the guy Dylan Harper is at number 2. I think it's much more likely Dylan Harper finds himself as an all-star, maybe even all-NBA caliber player than anybody below him. And that's why I'm going ahead and I'm making that deal. Now, what's interesting with the Spurs here, right? And part of the reason why I think they'd want that 2028 Clippers first as well, there's been reports that they've been looking to trade up from 14 because they also have the 14th pick, but they want to trade down from number 2. I think they're kind of eyeing someone in that middle area around 6 to 7. I've heard Kaman Malawatch is an option for them to pair up with Victor Wembanyama. But also, when talking about the Spurs, obviously it's been heavily reported that they're interested in a Kevin Durant trade. So you give them that 2028 Clippers first, they might be enticed to take that in, to send that out to Phoenix, to potentially bring in Kevin Durant in a big move. So a lot of moving pieces here. We're going to see some fireworks, either before draft night or on draft night, no doubt about it. And really quick, I want to address this as well, because I've seen some people online on Twitter saying, is Philly trading up for Ace Bailey? Do they like him that much? Look, if they trade up to number 2 and draft Ace Bailey, I love Ace Bailey. I'll have a meltdown. There's just no doubt about it, right? Because if you're worried about teams moving up and jumping you for Ace Bailey, because there's been some talk about the Pelicans being really interested in Ace and they want to move up and take him. If you're that worried that the Pelicans move up to number 2 to take Ace Bailey, like, why not just stay at number 3 and draft Dylan Harper, who's the better prospect? It doesn't make sense. There's no world to me that I can see where Philly would rather have Ace Bailey than Dylan Harper. And if that's the case and Morey does like Ace more than Dylan Harper, then I think Morey probably going to get fired after 1 year because of how highly most people do think of Dylan Harper. But of course, we'll see. I would highly doubt they trade up to number 2 to draft Ace Bailey. It's got to be Dylan Harper. But speaking of the NBA draft, again, we are under 2 weeks away. On Wednesday, June 25th is night 1. Of course, night 2 will be Thursday, June 26th. And we will be live for the NBA draft. You do not want to miss out. So be sure to hit that sub button as we just surpassed 22,000 subs. Going to make our way to 23K. So be sure to subscribe and turn on those notifications so you do not miss a thing.